We're covering everything that you need to know in talent experience.
People applying for new positions is like the cherry on top.
With the technology to attract talent.
Recruiters always know their best talent.
The AI just wants to use that information.
Inclusion efforts across the organization.
Tell me what it's like to work through associate story.
Interviews with leaders in the industry. Talk about what's new in HR tech. What are the hot topics? We're here every week, folks. Weekly look at the latest and greatest topics in HR. Hey everyone, welcome. I love that intro music. It always gets me excited. You know what day it is. You know what time it is. Thursday, 12 p.m. Eastern. We are here. This is Talent Experience Live. As I like to say, it's the greatest show on the internet. I know it's a bold statement, but I'm going to keep making it, and we're going to live up to it. This is the place to be every single week if you are a recruiter, a sourcer, a talent marketer, talent manager, if you're in talent acquisition. We are super excited to be here. I'm your host, Tom Tate. I'm on the marketing team here at Phenom. And if you're just joining us, as I said, we go live every Thursday at 12 p.m. Eastern time. LinkedIn, Facebook, YouTube, Twitter occasionally. We are here, on your platform of choice. Be sure to like, subscribe. If you're on YouTube, hit that bell so you can get notified. We want to make sure you never miss a beat. We love being here, and we love it when you join as well. Talent Experience Live is proudly brought to you by the team here at Phenom. Our purpose at Phenom is to help 1 billion people find the right job. 1 billion people. That is not a typo. It's a true billion. We are well on our way, and we can't do it without our amazing community. So for all of those who are joining us today, we can't do it without you. So thank you for coming on by, participating, asking questions, being engaged in the chat. It really means a lot to us. Our talent experience platform, it helps candidates find the right fit faster. It helps employees evolve in their current role and beyond. It helps recruiters achieve some of that next level productivity and efficiency. And it helps managers build better teams with tools and data. All of this is powered by super slick artificial intelligence, automation, and machine learning. So if you want to learn about any of this, we had our AI day back in December. You can catch the replay there, ai.phenom.com. If you want to learn about our platform, you can head on over to phenom.com. And we'd love to have conversations with you. We'd love to help educate you on what we're doing because it's super exciting stuff. Last week, I was super sick last week. So I am recovering. So super nasally still. I apologize for that. But we ran one of our most popular episodes. We reran an episode last week. It was Breaking Barriers, Empowering the Next Generation of Women Leaders. And our guest was Colleen Stratton. She is the global leader of workforce development at SEI. We did this in part in honor of International Women's Day, which was last Tuesday. And the theme this year was Break the Bias. And just because International Women's Day is over, it certainly doesn't mean that the mission and the purpose and the spirit of that day does not continue. So definitely check out that replay. You can check it out on YouTube or LinkedIn. If you want to learn more about some of the awesome programs that Colleen is running at SEI. Very inspiring episode. And as I mentioned, one of my favorites and one of the most popular just in terms of view counts and engagement that we've had here at Talent Experience Live. So I'm very excited to be here today. Shout out to our video producer, Justin Devitt. He is behind the scenes pulling the strings. He was out last week. Shout out to our executive producer, Patri Chupa. She was out last week, right? So the gang is back together again. We are back together again, and we have a very exciting episode for you today. Today, we're talking all about high volume hiring. Very popular topic. I see more talk around the Great Resignation now being referred to as the sustained resignation. That's the new thing that I'm hearing. There are 30 different names for the big quit these days. The latest is the sustained resignation. And now, it's all about conversations around the talent shortage and the impact that it's having on businesses, big and small. We have trucks that don't have drivers. We have fast food restaurants that don't have cooks. We have hospitals that don't have nurses. We have hotel rooms that can't be cleaned quick enough and turned over. We have software companies that can't find enough engineers to write and maintain code. These are real challenges. These are real challenges that all businesses are being faced with. And to help us dive deeper, we've got our colleague, Adam Thompson. He's a product director here at Phenom. He'll be joining us in just a minute. But one of the things that we always like to do to warm up the crowd and understand kind of who's joining us. One of the things I like to say is I have the benefit of working for the internet, which is amazing, right? I get to work with people all across the globe. no boundaries here. So we'd like to ask a quick icebreaker question. So while we bring on Adam, I want to ask, what's your lucky charm? What's your lucky charm? I mean, today is a day, right, where we celebrate St. Patrick's Day, and of course, it's also the first day for March Madness if you're here in the United States. If you're a college basketball fan, so I'm sure everyone's got their lucky team that they're rooting for. So, what is your lucky charm, or what is something superstitious that you do? You know, do you throw salt over your shoulder if you spill some? Do you not walk underneath the ladder? Is there something that you like to do? Do you not step on the crack when you're walking down the sidewalk? So I'm curious, what's your lucky charm or something superstitious that you can do? You can shout out in the chat. We've got rabbit foot keychain. Love it. Love it. Awesome. We've got Cynthia chiming in the chat too. We have Patrizia also joining us. Annapurna, welcome. So we've got some folks joining us already. So while we bring on Adam, because I'm super excited to bring him on, super curious, what's your lucky charm? You can shout out in the chat, and we'll kick off this conversation. So without any further ado, let's bring Adam to the show. Adam, welcome. How are you?
Hey, Tom. Doing great. Thanks for the invite.
I am super excited to have you on board. You participated in Phenom AI Day back in December, and you were very new to the team. You were very fresh to the team, and you just jumped right in.
I think it was on day 2.
Amazing, right? And you crushed it. You crushed it, and that was super exciting. We always do this. We always ask, the same icebreaker question to our guests. So I have to ask you, are you a superstitious person? Do you have a lucky charm? Or anything that comes to mind for you?
Oh man, I'm worried I'm going to be kind of boring here, Tom. No, I'm not superstitious. No lucky charms at all. The only thing I'm probably guilty of is like triple checking my mirrors when I get in the car.
Nice. That's okay. That's totally fine. I do not. Well, that's not true. So I did bury the St. Joseph statue when I listed and sold my house the past 2 times.
Nice.
And I guess that is a bit of a lucky charm or superstition. So I did do that. And we have a bunch of people chiming in here. Maggie always knocks on wood. Love that as well. Jen is chiming in saying her kids always tell her to avoid the cracks. Love that. Bambi is chiming in saying, picking up feet while riding over railroad tracks. That's a classic one as well.
Classic.
Patrizia tapping into her Italian heritage here. Super superstitious. Crossing fingers for good luck. Don't put the purse on the floor. Love that as well. Awesome. So we've got some great ones here. Listen, we'll get into it, right? The moral of this talk is you can't leave your hiring up to luck, right? You have to take some serious action, and we're going to be talking about a lot of the different actions that you can take. But before we really jump into it, I'd love to hear a little bit about you, Adam. Who are you? What's your role at Phenom? And how did you find your way into HR tech?
Sure. So I'm Adam Thompson, Director of Product for our new high volume experience solutions. So basically, I am responsible for everything high volume here at Phenom, and basically looking at how do we tailor all of our experiences to better support candidates and companies that are experiencing this absolutely tremendous challenge of hiring high volume workers today.
That's incredibly awesome. And have you been in HR tech for a bit, or is this kind of your first foray into the space?
No. I would say I've been in the HR space for 10 years and HR tech specifically for 7.
Awesome. Yeah. So you've been there, you've seen a lot of the trends, and obviously, the current state of the market is unlike anything many of us have ever seen, right? And I was hoping maybe you can dive into that a little bit. Obviously in the wake of the pandemic, so many different changes, right? So many different things have factored into this. High volume hiring and, this conversation around the talent shortage has risen to the forefront of so many conversations. And, from where you sit, what are the main factors that are really driving these?
So obviously there's a lot of different factors that are compounding that are making this difficult for companies today. If we start really big picture, there was almost a complete reset in the job market that happened kind of at the beginning of COVID. A lot of companies unfortunately had to let go of a lot of their high volume workforces at the start of the pandemic, not knowing what the economy was going to hold for the future. And if we look at the kind of the modus operandi pre-pandemic, a lot of organizations were hyper focused on, I would say, almost putting up at times barriers for candidates to actually get through an application process, a screening process, and ultimately get to an interview stage and hired. And a lot of companies were doing that, putting, for example, assessments or video interviews or lots of kinds of screening approaches up front in order to constrict the number of candidates that were getting in front of their recruiters and hiring managers. Now it's almost a 180 flip. Companies are no longer kind of spoiled for choice when it comes to applicant volume. And instead, we're in a labor crunch. There's 11.3 million unfilled jobs just in the United States economy today. The vast majority of those are for high volume roles. It's not isolated to the United States. We're seeing the same thing happening in the UK, across Europe. And I spent the last 10 years before coming back to the United States in Thailand. Thailand is in the exact same crunch right now. So it's not isolated.
Yeah. And we've talked about this a bit, but, typically this is an HR challenge, right? This is a CHRO challenge, right? And I think what we're starting to see now is just the eyes and the ears of everyone in the C-suite really perking up and understanding how critical some of these challenges that we're faced with are having on the business, right? This is no longer just a CHRO challenge, right? This is very much a business challenge. And what are the consequences, right, of not doing anything, right? Like when we think about these new challenges that we're faced with, they require new solutions. I'm a firm believer in that. And for talent acquisition teams today, if they change nothing, do nothing, what are the outcomes that you're seeing, for businesses that are in these positions?
Unfortunately, it's dire consequences for a lot of organizations that aren't adapting quickly to this new reality. So if we, and you're exactly right, it's no longer an isolated HR issue. It's really an operations issue now. It's a bottom line business impact today. Maybe it's best illustrated by an example.
Sure.
There's I'll withhold names, but there's a really large daycare provider where actually my kids go. I've got twin 3-year-old daughters, and just in the last 6 months or so, they've had to send kids home from my kids' daycare 13 times in 6 months.
Yeah.
And often it's for days at a time. And they're doing that because they're short-staffed. Well, the way that daycare works is if they can't provide service, the parents don't pay. For every worker that they're short, it's roughly somewhere between 8 to 12 kids that can't go to class. And it's about $45 to $50 a day per kid. That particular organization is short 8,000 daycare workers in the United States, 2,000 in the United Kingdom. It's roughly costing them $500,000 per day if you just do that math quickly.
Yeah,
$50 a day times 10 kids per class times 10,000 teachers. So it's a massive impact for them.
And as you mentioned, it's a compounding issue, right? Because if you're losing that revenue, if that revenue is not coming in, it makes it even harder, for you to acquire the talent that you need, keep your existing staff paid. I've seen a lot of, local chains and local businesses go out of business actually relatively recently, where they survived most of COVID, like they survived the initial waves. They were able to keep things afloat. But then with the talent shortage that we're experiencing now and the recent waves of COVID that we've had, I've seen, recently they just couldn't stay afloat, and I've also seen a lot of, a lot of doors closing at hours when typically they'd be open, and a lot of it is tied to this. And I think it's super, super challenging when you think about it. So, what are some of the old ways, that HR teams would have would have managed this challenge? What are some of the old ways, the old go-to tactics and strategies that we would have said, okay, we need talent, here's what we'll do?
Yep. So I think that the old go-to is probably threefold. One, let me throw a bunch of humans at this, a bunch of recruiters at this, and basically throw an incredible amount of pressure at the HR team to deliver. But obviously that's not really a great solution, because those humans can only do so much, especially with the amount of shortages that we're seeing at a lot of companies out there. Two is they'll begin to kind of go across their workforce and really push referrals heavily, which is a great path. But one of the things that we're seeing is that there's roughly 4 million resignations happening per month still. And that's been true for about the past 12 to 16 months.
Sure. And
organizations that are short-staffed are ending up in a bit of a spiral where because they're short-staffed, there's more pressure on the people that are employed there. Therefore, those people get a little bit fed up, a little bit tired, and end up resigning as well, which then leads them to be even further short-staffed. So whenever you're trying to go to those individuals for referrals, it can be a little bit of a tricky situation, because that current employee may feel that they're inviting a friend or an acquaintance into a tough situation. So referrals are great, definitely an amazing source of great talent. But if you're already in a very, very tough spot, you could be facing a little bit of blowback if you push heavily for referrals.
Yeah.
The third way is essentially rapidly increasing marketing spend for your roles, recruitment marketing, and ultimately increasing wages.
Yeah, so. For sure. And we've seen a fair amount of that happening as well. Just going back to, this first option that you mentioned, kind of the old way, which is let's just expand headcount, right? Let's just add a bunch of recruiters. I'm guessing you're seeing that fail on a couple of different levels, right? Because, just adding recruiters isn't going to solve for talent shortages, right? Yeah. And it's also not necessarily going to improve the candidate experience, right? Just because you have more people doing LinkedIn searches and making phone calls and maintaining some of these recruitment marketing campaigns, you're not always improving some of that kind of those systemic bottlenecks in the candidate experience that are slowing things down. Right. So I kind of want to dig into that a little bit, but do you have any comment on that?
Just one quick one. And that method assumes that you can actually find recruiters.
Right. Sure.
There's a 680% increase in the number of recruiter job openings right now. There's a lot of companies that can't even find recruiters.
Right. Yep.
So even to try to lean into a strategy where you may try to quickly beef up your recruitment team and then throw more humans at the problem, it assumes that you can actually find those humans, which a lot of companies are actually struggling to do.
Yeah. And find them fast.
Yeah.
If you're just joining us on Talent Experience Live, we have Adam Thompson from the team here at Phenom. The topic is, how to get high volume hiring right. We're really talking about how can we solve some of these massive challenges of needing to fill roles faster in some of these front lines, some of these high volume roles. If you're in this environment, I want to hear from you. I want to hear in the comments, what are some of the challenges that you're facing? We'd love to have those conversations and discussions here on the show. And any questions that you have for Adam, definitely bring them on. We'd love to hear about it. Or, let us know anecdotes of, every day. You don't have to call out the business by name, but every day, challenges that you're seeing with businesses that you interact with. Are you not able to visit the stores or the restaurants you want to visit? Are you getting slow service, when you visit urgent care or a hospital? These are all things that are having real world impacts on us, as everyday consumers. So we talked about some of the challenges of doing it the old way, the consequences of doing it the old way or doing nothing. So let's talk about the new way. So, when we think about high volume hiring, especially here at Phenom, we think about a lot of the tools we have at our disposal: artificial intelligence, automation, and technology. But, all of those might be a little bit abstract for folks, right? So, in certain terms, not in uncertain terms, when we talk about high volume hiring here at Phenom, What does that look like in practice, at a high level for you, Adam?
Yeah. So perhaps it's best to start with the need to really consider to treat high volume candidates to a different type of experience than you might for your corporate career roles or your knowledge worker roles. We actually did a really deep investigation where we looked across an enormous amount of phenom data, 250 million candidates, 2 million jobs, 180 countries, just an enormous pile of data. And we saw some kind of troubling signs. What we were seeing across the board is that the majority of companies were treating their high volume workers to the same exact experience as their knowledge workers. And there's a couple issues there. One, if we look at the way that they interact with job boards or career sites, often if we're talking about a knowledge worker, you know exactly what that job is called because you're normally on a more well-defined career track. If I'm going to look for a job, I know it's going to be called product management in every organization.
Sure.
And I'm probably always going to want to stay in product management. The same is true for most salespeople or people in HR or people in IT or engineering. So it's really quick and easy for them to find opportunities. An issue happens though with frontline workers because they tend to be a lot more agnostic on the type of role that they're going to accept. So the person who's a cashier today may be really interested to be a barista tomorrow, and maybe 2 years from now, a flight attendant. So they're more interested in or more open to hopping from role type to role type. The issue is there's a lot less consistency in what those job titles are.
Sure.
If you look at one fast food restaurant, you may be called a team member. In another fast food restaurant, you might be called a cashier. In a third, maybe it's labeled like a cook.
Yep.
If you don't know what the job is called, you can't find it most of the time. So that creates a really big issue, and we're seeing really large spikes in bounce rates. Basically, candidates who are interacting with an experience, and if they can't find what they're looking for within 2 minutes, they usually bounce and go look somewhere else. So that's one major issue that we're seeing, and we're seeing a lot of companies attempt to solve that in different ways that I'll touch in a second.
Sure.
The second big thing that we found in our data is it actually takes double the amount of time on average for frontline workers to apply than it does for knowledge workers. Average knowledge worker takes about 5 minutes and 40 seconds to get through an entire application experience.
Sure.
Frontline, it's on average, it's about 11 minutes and 4 seconds. So it's a really big time discrepancy. And that's because most companies are having them go through the exact same experience. But it's not actually the same experience for the candidate. For a knowledge worker, I can upload a resume, usually have it get parsed, and I'm almost always going to be applying from a desktop. If I'm a frontline worker, I probably don't have a resume. Therefore, I have to enter everything in manually. And guess what? I'm using my thumbs on a smaller screen. So what we see is just a tremendous amount of abandoned applications from frontline candidates when they're having to go through such a lengthy application process.
Yeah, introducing so much friction, right? And friction. Simply because, we're not being mindful of the candidate experience, which is something we talk about so often here, and again, the candidate journey is not always a linear one, and the candidate journey is not going to be the same for any given worker. I'm very curious though, going back to your first challenge, I don't want to jump too far ahead, but
sure.
How do you recommend organizations solve for the discoverability and connecting candidates with the right role faster if you are using corporate specific language that might not resonate with the rest of the industry that you're in?
So in that scenario, first of all, looking at across your job titles is one easy starting point. Are you using job titles that are fairly easy to interpret and understand? And are they going to be fairly common search terms? So that's just a really basic thing to begin with. And looking across your competitors or the different kind of origination sources from your candidates to see, are most people moving within industry, or are they coming from out of industry? If they're within industry, are your titles similar enough to others in your space that they're going to be recognizable or not? If they're people from out of industry, typically, is this something that they would commonly search for if they wanted a job at your company? So that's kind of a starting point. But what I would really recommend is a streamlined career site, and probably a chatbot and an SMS approach that really guides that candidate through a bit of a personalized journey, where they, instead of, for example, have to guess what the job is called by trying to navigate across perhaps a very complex career site, or maybe have to even type in a search term, present them predefined options. So instead of you having to guess what the job is called, present, here are the 3 good options for you. And now that candidate knows exactly what they should select from.
Yeah. And
it's a really easy starting point.
Yeah. And I love that too. And, one of the value that we see from the chatbot, I'm sure you see this all the time, is you don't need that resume to begin building your profile, and I think, you're right. Knowledge workers, they typically have the resume. It's up to date. It's got all the keywords in it. You upload it, we parse it, and then we're able to give you instant results. And for a knowledge worker, that is amazing. We're getting you connected with the right fit as fast as possible. If you don't have that resume and you don't have an intuitive way to begin building your profile on site, in a conversational, friendly tone with terms and language that you understand, you're going to be out of luck. You're going to be going to the search page, and you're going to have to hope that, your terms match the terms that output the right jobs, and I think that, that's an incredible approach, and a super important one, as well. And I love, just again, focusing on the candidate experience, when we're thinking about the job description pages. What do you think about the use of video on those pages? Are you seeing that be more critical? Because even if I don't understand what your job title really means, if there's like a day in the life video, right? Or if there's a quick 30-second, 60-second, something I can watch to say, here's what this role is, here's what you'll be doing, and here's our awesome culture. I'm seeing more and more of those pop up, even for frontline roles, high volume roles. Do you think that that's a critical piece, in this race to engage, the frontline employees?
100%. We know that people don't read job descriptions in general for high volume roles. We've actually got this really cool ability to kind of do almost like an NFL play-by-play, where we can watch real-time interactions with career sites and how people are interacting with job descriptions. And the fact of the matter is, they don't read. They just click the apply button if they're interested. That video can be a much better communication path than expecting somebody to read a super long job description, even a short job description. The video can be what really helps this person connect to the organization and get them to really kind of buy into what your company is offering and what this job may be. And I would say, in general, the best videos that I've seen are from actual workers. I got to give a shout out to UPS. If there's anybody from UPS watching, UPS, you actually have a few employees that have made this on their own, and they're on TikTok, and they are absolutely fantastic. It's about they're usually like a 1 to 2 minute kind of day in the life style video. And you actually kind of get to meet this real employee and see what their actual day looks like and why they wanted to work at a company like UPS in this example. Those are incredibly powerful. And you have to kind of take that frame of mind, right? Where you might not be on TikTok, right? Like I might not be on TikTok, but hey, guess what? Your audience might be on TikTok. Your worker, your future employees, they might be on TikTok. And if that's the type of content they're consuming every day, if that's what they're resonating with, these are the opportunities that aggressive, sophisticated talent acquisition teams, these are the opportunities that they need to take advantage of. And then once you see that video and you click over to the career site where it's pushing you through, pushing you through the process, building your profile, connecting you with the right role.
as you're connected with the right role, you find the job description you like. Maybe there is a short video. You want to click on it. You want to pursue. What are some other ways, from that point, that you see great companies kind of reducing the friction? What are some other ways that you can start to, bring that, what was it, 11 minutes, closer
11
to
minutes
kind
and 4 seconds.
closer to the 5-minute mark, right?
Yeah. So a couple of things. One, really first making a decision, do you actually need a full application up front?
Sure.
Because I think in many cases with the clients that or companies that I'm speaking with, they're deciding to no longer have that full application be required upfront, and instead are moving towards really light, quick expression of interests that are often as simple as first name, last name, email, phone number, and a couple of basic screening questions to make sure that they meet some very minimum criteria. Are you 18 or over, 16 or over in some cases? Can you legally work in the country? And maybe 1 or 2 background style questions. And if you have met those basic criteria, let's immediately route this person to the next step of our process. A good example, everybody knows that there's a gigantic nursing shortage right now. I bet every company that's interested in hiring a nurse, if somebody raises their hand and says, I'm an RN, they want to talk to that person immediately. You don't want to wait. The average is 3 to 5 days right now for a company to review and get back in touch with a qualified applicant. In 3 to 5 days, that highly qualified person, RN in this example, could have very well applied to, our average is 65 jobs. The first company that gets back in touch with them actually is in the game to try to get this candidate over to their business. So you've got to be able to cut down that time to engage as quickly as possible for your high priority positions.
Do you typically see kind of the next touch point being a human engagement, or is that an opportunity to automate maybe an SMS text message, or begin, an omni-channel approach, right? Where we're not waiting for you to get a phone call necessarily, right? But we're able to keep the wheels moving forward,
Yep.
In a way that acknowledges the application, continues to build interest until, we can get to that real one-on-one engagement.
So there's 4 flavors of this that are out there today. One flavor is complete full automation. In that scenario, a candidate is typically able to discover a job opportunity, do a full application for it, be screened, and get an offer, all in roughly 15 to 30 minutes without ever having to talk to a human. That is the absolute cutting edge of this.
Sure.
And the companies that are doing full automation are looking at ways to get that 15 to 30 minute time frame even further reduced.
It's wild.
It's wild.
Yeah.
They're not phenom clients yet, but I would point everybody to go check out Amazon, for example, and apply to be a package handler there. It is that's who you're going up against for these high volume employees, and Amazon pays pretty darn well.
Yeah.
So that's on the extreme cutting edge side of things. 2 other use cases. One is a more centralized recruiter process, where the next touch ideally is a recruiter for a couple of reasons. One, to do a little bit more thorough of a job screening this individual, but more importantly, a lot of companies want to make that little bit of a human connection so they can kind of help sell the organization and sell this particular position to this candidate, because they know that they're in competition with other potential offers that this person may receive. So the goal there should be to get a qualified candidate in a high priority role to have that human touch as quickly as possible. And in the middle, remove as much of the noise, the daily mundane tasks that recruiters are typically having to do. A recruiter shouldn't have to screen every single application to figure out who they want to talk to. That can all be automated away. And on the kind of the other side of that is if it's maybe more of a hiring manager focused process, where Good examples would be restaurants or hotels, where it's normally the restaurant manager or the hotel manager that's going to be doing those interviews. They are incredibly busy people. They're having to run a business and at the same time take care of their HR needs. We hear time and time again, their hiring managers don't have time to sift through 50 or 100 applications that they may have received to pick out the people that they want to talk to. Instead of using their time to do those tasks, it's much more important to quickly get the pre-qualified candidates booked for interviews with them. And that could be, I'm seeing group interviews where we're inviting a pool of people to come on site. We're seeing one-on-ones through phone screens or video interviews. We're seeing all kinds of different variations of this. And it's probably best to try out a variety of different tactics to really find out what's going to work best for your business and be ready to quickly adapt as the market changes.
So, one of the things that I think this brings up, and I've asked this to a few folks on the show before, because I think this is a really interesting look into the future. We know that 25-30% of recruiters' time is just being sucked up by these mundane tasks, needing to go into calendar software and look at everybody's calendar individually to make sure that you can find the right time for these group interviews.
Yep.
Or those back and forth email threads to say, oh, I couldn't make it, I need to reschedule this interview. And then you're handling all of that, and it just sucks up so much of your time. And that's just one piece. Scheduling is just one piece. You mentioned screening.
Yep.
Recruiters should not have to screen every single candidate, or the hiring manager should not have to screen every single candidate. And you also mentioned earlier in the show that good luck finding more recruiters, right? Because there's not an infinite pool. There aren't that many out there. And good luck finding a great one as well. Exactly. So as automation and artificial intelligence takes away the burden of doing a lot of these mundane tasks like scheduling, like screening, pouring through resumes, sourcing even, what does the role of the recruiter begin to look like, right? So they're getting this time back. They're not just sitting back and reading comic books, like they're putting that time back into other activities.
Yeah.
But I'm curious from your perspective, what are those activities, right? Or is it just putting more TLC into existing activities that are, part of the existing role?
Great question. So, first of all, I 100% agree. It doesn't make a lot of sense to have recruiters spending a tremendous amount of their time and energy going into screening applicants for, let's call it, high volume roles where the requirements are really standardized and basic. All of that can very easily be automated away. Once you're able to automate that away, yes, we're seeing typically recruiters are getting back 30 to 40% of their day. And where that time can be better spent is making stronger human connections with these candidates, answering their questions, getting them pumped up and really interested in your organization, really kind of selling this job on a more one-on-one or group level, instead of just dealing with all of the kind of heavy admin tasks that soak up a lot of energy. I'm also seeing that companies are putting more energy into workforce planning as well, which is great, and really trying to digest and a little bit better understand what their data is telling them. How, instead of spending 10 out, half my day screening applications, now I can be thinking about who's the great new hire that I can reach out to help us do a short video that I can now include on my on the next time I post this job in their market, and start to get really more in depth and in tune with the individual markets that they're responsible for, and trying to find new sources of candidates and new methods of connecting with those candidates instead of just the old kind of mundane stuff. Yeah. So it's really an uplift of the role of a recruiter.
Yeah. It has the potential to be a total transformation, where they are, really becoming kind of the face of the employer brand, and
Exactly.
really able to make those interactions, those human connections. And when you're thinking about roles like nursing, for example, where you mentioned, they might apply to 65 roles, right? And at the end of the day, the role that wins is probably going to be the one that is most responsive, right? Most attractive, most responsive, but a lot of it might be driven by these connections that are being made with actual human beings who are on the other side of the emails, of the SMS text messages, of the application, of the career site. And recruiters are now in the position to be that person, right? And I think that that's an incredible thing, and we're starting to see this happen more and more. And I guess it creates kind of a flywheel, right? Because if the recruiters can provide that for candidates, then that just uplifts the candidate's experience as well.
Exactly.
Because I wanted to ask you this question around the candidate experience, because I've seen anecdotally, I've seen on Reddit and I've seen across the internet, not all candidates like automation. Not all candidates want to do the on-demand video assessments, the asynchronous video assessments. They feel it's impersonal.
Sure.
Sometimes they get ghosted, where they spend their time doing this and they never know the status of their submissions. So we're introducing a lot of great technology that is reducing that 11 minutes down to 5 minutes. That's reducing that 4 to 7 days to hire to, in some cases 30 minutes, which is wild, but we're reducing all this time. It's having incredible benefits for those who are getting hired. But I guess we do run the risk, and maybe a lot of organizations are scared of running the risk of alienating candidates, making them feel like they're just a number, and subjecting them to AI algorithms and automation. So what is your response typically to that? And what are some ways that we can really ensure that candidates are walking away super satisfied and happy with whatever we put in front of them?
Yeah, Tom, great question. So first of all, one size does not fit all.
Sure.
So I would just highly encourage every organization to offer multiple different options to your candidates. That should mean different ways that they can connect with your organization. So that could be TikTok, that could be SMS, that could be a chatbot, that could be a career site. You're going to need multiple different methods, and across those different methods, I highly encourage you, don't require every candidate to go through the exact same type of experience. You may want to fast track certain groups, like those registered nurses that we've talked about. And ultimately, when it comes down to kind of letting that candidate guide how they want to proceed. And you could offer candidates a choice. Do you prefer to schedule a time to talk to somebody, or do you want to do a pre-recorded video interview? And let the candidate choose, and then see what results are you actually getting off of that choice. Are you seeing more candidates choose one over the other? Are you seeing higher drop off in one experience versus the next? And then that's going to allow you to really more quickly fine tune what type of an experience you're offering to your candidates. But bottom line, offer choices.
I love that. And, there are a lot of parallels there between talent acquisition and marketing, which is the discipline I'm in. And I always think about the analogy that I've stuck with for a while, which is it's like Disney World, like there are multiple points of entry. But once you're inside, there are many different paths that you can take. You decide what path you want to take, but every nook, every crevice of Disney feels 100% Disney, right? And it is catered to me, as kind of the fan, the end user, the visitor, right? So once you step foot in that process, you have agency, you have choice, you have options, but you have the assurance, that no matter what route you take, you're going to have the same branded, the same personalized, the same transparent experience that you signed up for when you stepped into the front gate or the side gate or whatever gate you stepped into, so
exactly.
A lot of great opportunity there. I love the idea of introducing choice into that. Adam, obviously, we're coming up on time. I feel like you and I could probably continue this conversation for another, hour. And I'm sure you've had hours and hours of conversations like this, with clients and with prospects and folks in the industry. I wanted to just kind of leave our audience with a couple tips, right? A couple actionable items that they can take today. Obviously, it'd be great if we could snap our fingers and have the solutions and the technology implemented overnight. That's not always the case. Not everybody has, the full system baked the way that they want to have it baked. This is a very evolving thing, typically for most organizations. If you're in that camp where you're not sure where to go, I would definitely encourage you, and I'm sure Adam would encourage you as well. Reach out to us here at Phenom, phenom.com, shameless plug. Let us know you want to have a conversation. The conversation is always tailored to your specific, needs, right? In your specific context. So you can go on our website and read all you want, but the best way to really understand how to solve some of these challenges is to have that conversation. So I would encourage you to do that. But for all of our recruiters, our sourcers, our talent marketers, our talent acquisition folks who are watching today or watching the replay, if they want to take action right now, what are some of your top 3 tips or actionable steps that you'd love to leave them with for today?
Yeah. So I'd say one is partner really closely with your operations leaders and your business leaders within the organization who are experiencing the pain due to not having enough high volume workers in the team today. That's one way that you're going to really get internal buy-in to really seriously look into a solution. So that would be my top recommendation for you. 2 is start looking for, I hate the term, but the low hanging fruit. There's always going to be a few easy things that you can do. If you're not in a organization that is has like a super mature HR technology tax stack in place today, that's okay. You could start by doing some uplifts, like I said, of rationalizing your job titles, looking at a couple of new channels that you could think to begin to market, cleaning up your career site. There's some really simple places to start. If you are in one of those really big organizations that is more mature, then begin to look at what are the groups of candidates that we wish we could talk to instantly. So are you recruiting nurses? Are you attempting to recruit React software developers and you just can't find them? Is it recruiters for yourselves? Figure out what that group is and what that kind of Occam's razor, that shortest path to connecting with those people might be, and then begin to work out how you could modify your process to more quickly streamline getting them to a point of human connection. Those would be my top 3 recommendations.
I love it. We're going to slice and dice that into a nice clip, right? And you're going to see that, all over LinkedIn, Adam, because that is perfect. And you summed it up pretty well. One of our colleagues, Cliff, at AI Day, he just had a quote that, I must have repeated it 100 times since AI Day because it just resonates with me. And I think it really speaks to the situation we're in, which is, it's no longer about the war for talent. It's about the race to engage, right? The race to
exactly
engage,
right. Good job.
Right. War for talent, that's the old way, right? Just throw more bodies, onto the field, right? And eventually you'll win the war. And it's not the case, right? It's all about the race to engage. And Adam, you have given us so many different ways, that from the candidate experience, from the recruiter experience, from just overall looking at your end-to-end process. There are multiple opportunities where you can shorten those time gaps, those feedback loops, right? You can shorten those and you can get closer and closer to winning the race to engage. Because like you said, you're up against, companies like Amazon who are doing it in minutes.
Exactly.
When you might be doing it in days, and there's opportunity to get those days down to hours and those hours down to minutes. And you're seeing it. We're seeing it here at Phenom. If you're not seeing it at your organization and you want to reach out to us, we'd love to have, these continued conversations, show you what we're seeing, show you how you can kind of see this transformation happen firsthand. Before we sign off, any final words of wisdom, any final thoughts?
Don't wait until the pain is excruciating to take action. Start looking to take action now.
Yeah. Best time might have been, 12 to 18 months ago. Second best time is today, right?
Exactly.
So I love it. Awesome. Adam. Well, thank you so much. You've been an amazing guest. I am sure this conversation is not going anywhere. So I'm sure, we would love to have you back on, as trends change, as technology changes. I would love to also dive deep into case studies, as we start to gather more data, as we start to see some more success. I'd love to bring you back on in the future. We can talk about some specific success stories. Maybe we can grab some of our mutually successful customers and clients, and we can see if we can talk through some stories. But yeah, thank you so much. This has been amazing. Hope you have a really fantastic rest of your day. Enjoy the weekend as well. And we'll catch you on a future episode. Thank you.
Thanks, Tom. See ya.
Adam. Oh my gosh, that was amazing. So thank you, Adam. Love it. Love the topic. Tony B chiming in the chat here. I love the idea of empowering new and tenured employees as a source for identifying top talent. Introducing AI tech to help employees identify people in your professional social circles to fill roles is so revolutionary. So many great actionable tips, like looking at your application, really understanding, does your application flow need to be the same for knowledge workers as it is for frontline workers? Having video throughout the process, incredibly important. Letting your recruiters evolve into that next level, right? That next role. Take away all the mundane tasks that are holding them back from winning that race to engage, right? And forming that human connection with candidates. I love it. So we talked about so many awesome things, a lot of actionable stuff. We're going to clip this up. So you'll see some clips. We're going to write a blog post about this one. So if you head on over to phenom.com and in about a week or two, head on over to our blog. We're going to be having all these actionable tips kind of broken down for you with clips that you can check out. So as always, my pleasure. Thank you so much for your time, your attention. Thanks for joining us. Bambi also mentioned too, never too early to start. I've already seen the signs for holiday hiring. So that's one thing that Adam and I did not talk about. We did not talk about seasonal hiring today, right? And that is a huge topic. So I actually think, that would be an incredible opportunity to bring Adam back on the show as we really do get closer to seasonal hiring and talk about how you can leverage some of these tactics to really ramp up. And again, the best time to start is today. So if you want to have a conversation with us, head on over to phenom.com. A lot of shameless plugs in this episode, but only because we're so excited about the opportunities here to solve some of these big challenges. And as I mentioned, our purpose is to help 1 billion people find the right job. And with high volume hiring, it's an incredibly great opportunity for us to fulfill that purpose with you and help you find success. So head on over to phenom.com and let us know if you want to have a conversation. My name is Tom Tate. It's been a pleasure hosting this episode. We will see you next Thursday at 12 p.m. Eastern time. If you have any topic ideas, if you want to let us know what you want to hear, reach out to me on LinkedIn, reach out to Patrizia Chupa on LinkedIn. Her information, she's typically active in the chat, so you can always reach out to her there as well. But we want to know, who should we have on the show? What topics do you want to hear us cover? And we're excited to just bring it every single week. New topics, new hosts, new guests. We love it. We have an exciting live episode coming up next week, so tune in, and we'll see you then.